Well, here we are. But hello there. Okay, so I've got a few minutes. We're going to be going to dinner pretty soon, but I want to hop on here and just get the environment set up. So some things that I did since the last video. Man, there's got to be a more convenient way of showing things without showing everything, right? Anyway, so last time in this episode of Dragon Ball Z, we created a blueprint version of this because C++ was not working. I had to update Visual Studio. I have since created a C++ version of it, and then I moved all the content that we created from last time. I moved it all over, so everything should be about the same. The only difference is now we have the codable assets. You can add code to a blueprint environment, but I'll show you in a minute that I guess the update of Unreal 3.5.3.2 is slightly annoying, so you'll see what I saw. Anyway, so here's my broken code. I'm gonna go ahead and just hit build and get this fired up. This may take a minute or two or 10. You would think with a Ryzen 7 and you know, some speedy memory and two graphics cards that this wouldn't take 10 years to boot up, but it does. I guess I could put a Ryzen 9 in there, but the Ryzen 7's been kind of buggy ever since I put it in. It has a lot of stalling, particularly with the internet. So for whatever reason, this machine, like once it establishes a connection, it's fine. But if I'm idle and I come back and I want to do something on the browser, it takes like 10 minutes for the browser to figure itself out. I have no idea why. But whatever. Anyway, so this thing should be building executable. Yeah. That's running, that's going. So I'm just waiting for it to do its thing. Unless I have errors, let's check the error log here. I don't think these actually matter. So one of the quirks with working with Visual Studio and Unreal is there's a lot of stuff that they have specifically for Unreal that does not communicate well with IntelliSense. So what ends up happening is you get a lot of false errors, which is annoying because you have to understand what is most likely not really an error versus what is actually an error. You can see that it's ready and it's booting. So this is all red and angry, but it's just IntelliSense being not so great. Let's get the most recent version over here. That way I can see the chat while I'm working. Feel free to say something in chat, see if it reads. It should read. I expanded the chat window, so it should be a little bit nicer. Hey look, Unreal's initializing. You can see how slow this very expensive computer runs. I need to update the motherboard. Right now it's not Windows 11 compatible. Let's see, how old is this thing? I built it 4 years ago. I think it's 4 years old. Maybe at some point for the stream, I'll do like an overlay, get like a layout. I don't like having a lot of things in the way. You know, I like to have as much visual clarity as possible. So, like I have different overlays. Like if I'm just sitting here doing this, this is my workspace overlay, right? If I go to my general one, this is like if I'm gaming, you know. But I have one specific for Metroid, but it's really just a gaming one. But anyway, that's booting up. 79%. And look, the errors are gone. IntelliSense is finished loading in the background, and everything's happy. Come on, you. That's getting there. It's loading the tunnel room map. It's kind of cool. You have to get used to that that loading screen because we're going to see it quite a bit. All right, and this is about where we left off last time, right? So we have the tunnel, all this stuff. Yeah. All right. Except now we have a folder full of C++ stuff. And the only thing I've added since then is a system folder and the game mode base. So a game mode is kind of like a game manager in a way, but it's per level. So you can have multiple levels feed off of a particular game mode that describes the rules of that level. If the rules are consistent across multiple levels, you can use the same game mode, but if the rules are changing, then you want to have a different game mode. So let's say in one room you're playing chess, another one you're doing checkers, you would be better off creating a separate game mode for that. You can put everything on one, but then you're moving a big thing around, you know. If you're not using stuff, why have the memory? Anyway, so all I'm doing in here is just creating some C++ classes. So I need a base class for my character. So I'll go ahead and just make that, and I'll create a folder for that. So instead of system, I'll do a character folder. And this will be our E character. And I'll create. Then once I create that, it's going to start going through and adding those files. You can see them getting populated in here, some basic stuff. Nothing fancy. Really all I want to do in this particular session, because I don't have a whole lot of time, is just get these base classes in so we can start coding them later. So there's the first one. You can see it's still kind of going. Live code will likely fail. It's recommended on the forums to just disable live code because it's most likely to fail. But it's weird, like it uses live code for a lot of the initialization processes. So if you go through and turn it off and then try to create a C++ game, a lot of times that'll fail. So you have to go in and make sure that plugin is active and then go through and run it, and then you can disable it later. I ran into that kind of issue with the source build because I needed to have, I think, live code enabled for the source build to run initially, but then I had to turn it off. Headache. So here's live coding. It's basically syncing up with Visual Studio and going through the motions of whatever it needs. Hey look, build failed. It always, almost always does. That doesn't mean anything. Reload. Yes. I am aware that if I reload now, things will have to be reinitialized. So yeah. Now, one of the things I'm going to do to try to make this machine a little bit quicker is I'm going to basically have everything run off of an SSD. Currently, I don't. And then have the hard drives that are currently there be as a storage access. Anything that I use on a regular basis will be on the SSD. Downside about that is if I have a source build of Unreal, it takes up 300 gigs, so it's just huge. They were build errors, you liar. Oh, right. Important to note, so if you create a subfolder in your C++, so when I created the my RE character asset and it built it, I told it to drop it into a folder, which it did. So if you look over here, I've got my Resident Evil, here's my characters, and my system subfolders. So it built the subfolder and it built the things into the subfolder. But what it does kind of stupidly is particularly if you're a C# user, you don't use less C++, you don't deal with header files. Your header file is basically a list of all the things you're going to use, and then your CPP file is where you actually write your code. Well, your CPP file has to reference your header file, right? So you can see that this is my CPP file, and this is referencing the .h file for the header. Well, when you create a subfolder using Unreal's toolkit, it will drop the header address into here, and it'll say, hey, that's inside the characters folder. But the mistake is the header file is inside my characters folder, right? So there is no characters folder inside the characters folder. So it's trying to look for a folder that doesn't exist. It's inside itself. So I'm going to just nuke that. Whoops, not the header. That I want. Oops, I totally broke that. I don't think I can Control-Z that. I cannot. So what I'll have to do is actually remove this file, which is not that big of a deal. What I need to do is close Visual Studio. Don't save. Let's check my source, character, and my .h file is still there, so I'll just relaunch the solution. Which is less of a pain in the butt than trying to go and bring that file back in. I can drag and drop it back in, but we'll see if I'll have to. How's it going? Hey, look, chat's working. But yeah, it takes forever to boot things up on this. I don't think this hard drive is very old, but physical hard drives are a bit slower anyway. Versus, platter-based hard drives versus SSDs. But it's just mind-boggling. Maybe I'm just so used to working on the laptop because the laptop's just so much quicker, or this has just gotten slower. But I don't know. How's it going? How's it going? I'm just waiting for this to boot. Slowness. How's your day so far? I know it says the solution's ready, but I think it's a lie. Let's see. Huh. Why it's being such a pain in the butt right now. Well, so much for that, you know. What a waste. Thing I hate the most is wasting my time. Sitting here getting absolutely nothing done is irritating. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of the... what do I need to do? Let's go to... Not sure why I have an upgrade log, but... Seems like I broke my solution. Alright. I'll nuke that. Let's see. Saved. I don't think I need saved. I don't think I need intermediate. Binaries. Config. Do we need the .vs? I think I can nuke that as well. We'll regenerate solution. Where you at? Go away. Is this trying to run in Visual Studio in 2019? That would be a problem. I think it's trying to run in 2019. Alright, so I was trying to boot in 2019, which is weird. But anyway, so you gotta remove this line. Make sure I'm not deleting the actual file this time. And then that should be fine. If you, since I regenerated my my build file, so I went down to my solution, and then I, told it to regenerate the files. It'll go through and it'll try to fix some of that stuff for you. But you can see that once this has all been cleared up, it's fine. It doesn't care. So I got that. I'll go ahead and just run off of here. I'm going to add in a couple other components. We need an actor for the actual rotating mechanism. And we need an actor for the thing on the wall that we have to interact with. So I'll go ahead and create those. Come on, you. You know you can do it. Move quicker. This is why I work on a laptop most of the time. This isn't even a big program. It's just taking it forever. Okay. Now I dropped this into this world here because I removed the preferences. So let me go ahead and just reset those preferences. Okay. If you're coming from Unity, this might be a bit foreign. Project settings, and then maps and modes. So you establish your game mode, and then which map you're starting on. That way the next time you go into the editor, it'll bring you there. Yeah, so we have characters, got systems. Let's save our current thing. Actually, I don't want to do that. Let's go to the tunnel. There we go. Save my settings there. Okay, so things that I want. In my system folder, I do need a character. I need a player controller. Actually, I don't really need a player controller, but I like having a player controller in the event that I have more than one player. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do that. Put that in my system folder. And I'll create that. I'll ignore for now so I can create the next thing. I also want if we do anything else with this project, like going through different levels, we're going to definitely want to have a way of carrying information between levels. So we're going to need Let's go to all classes here and do, what is it called in this? Game instance. You hear my phone doing things. Game instance, we'll go ahead and create that. Yay. And then another thing from live coding failed. Hey. Should probably just disable that. And then the next thing on the list, if we do a heads-up display of any kind, we could do that. But really, Resident Evil doesn't have much of a HUD, right? It just has just the game world, so we don't really need a HUD. But we should have something to house things being drawn on the screen, like your inventory menu and that sort of thing. So we could use the HUD for that. Really, it's just a widget, and the HUD is just a convenient place for the widget to live. So I'll make a HUD. Really, you could have this anywhere. You don't have to have a HUD class for this. You can run graphics to the screen from anything in Unreal. You can run the whole inventory system directly from the player, and whenever you hit, a button, it talks to the player, and the player fires up its inventory component, and that displays to the screen. You can do it that way as well. Let's ignore, and then we'll continue on. Another thing that I want in here, let's make a actor class. Make an actor. This is going to be rotating wall. I'll put this into a folder for environment stuff, I guess. You can ignore that, and then we'll need another actor. This will be the thing that you put the crank into. So crank unit, I guess. Crank wheel, crank box. And then what else do I want in here? Let's see what we have for interfaces. let's see what the default class is for that. So we go to blueprints here. System. Whoops. Not sure what I clicked on there, but oh, I created a new level. That doesn't belong. Might be under so there's a blueprint interface. I don't want a blueprint. I could do a blueprint interface, but I'm going to code one. Now we don't really need an interface. So what an interface does is it, because almost everything we're doing in C++ is encapsulated into its own container, there's not a good way of communicating between objects. So so if this sprite can and this phone wanted to talk to each other, they would each have to have a reference of each other's entity, and they'd have to be able to get access to that kind of stuff. What interface does is, instead of having the phone needing to have a reference of the Coke can, and then the phone also needing a reference to the keyboard or to a player or to whatever, we create a common object that everybody has a reference of, and then through that, if you were to make contact with an object, you'd say, "Hey, object, you have an interface," and the object says, "Yeah, I got an interface." Cool. On your interface, perform this action. Since all the interfaces have the same list of actions, it's a universal way of communicating. You can make an interface out of anything. I'm just looking at what my options are for here. Let's see. Let's see what the documentation says about interfaces. It's always good to read the documentation. So, as I was just saying, actually, I could probably just pull this up so you can read it. Hold on a second. That'd probably be helpful, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I went ahead and just looked up UE5 interfaces C++. If you don't do C++, it'll give you a blueprint one, and then I'm going to just open that. And here's the basic gist on interfaces. So interface classes are useful for ensuring that a set of potentially unrelated classes, so things that, keyboard, mouse, person, car, whatever, implement a common set of functions. This is very useful in cases where some game functionality may be shared by large complex classes that are otherwise dissimilar. And it gives you a list of examples, not unlike the ones I gave. Okay. Let's see what it recommends for the basic structure of this thing. do I want to construct? That's blueprint type. Right, so in like my list here, not that list. In here, if I look for interfaces, I have a bunch of interfaces, right? So the question is, which one do I want? Let's see. You know, it's funny. There are different standards, and a lot of folks say you shouldn't prefix things, but Unreal loves prefixing things. Okay. I don't know if I have the option for a standard U interface. Let's see, standard object. Huh. All right, well, I'm going to research a little bit on interfaces for UE5 and just see what the difference is between what I've done in Unreal 4. And I will build one and go from there. But dinner's going to be happening, so I'm going to stop here just so I can do some research, and then I'll come back. And, yeah. Oh, what I should do, though, is since I ignored all this stuff, go ahead and cancel. I'll close down the live coding thing, and actually let me see if I can just disable live code from this project. Let's see, where do I want to go? Plugins. Live code. I'll do that part later as well, because that's not really all that important. But I do want to, let's save here, and I want to rebuild, so I'm going to stop. Okay, and since I know I'm going to have a lot of broken things, what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit and then redo my system, because you can see that I don't have environments in here yet that didn't load. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to jump into here. Got multiple backups. I guess it's a new thing. It didn't used to do that. I'll get rid of well, I don't want to get rid of config though. I'll keep config. I'll get rid of save the intermediate. And I'll get rid of the solution. Let's generate CPP files. This is a very common thing you have to do. Why are you opening in 2019? Don't do that. Open in 2022. Okay. So now I have environments, which is good. Inside of there, I should have all those. Inside of system, I should have all these. I'm going to go to each one of my CPP files and remove the extension. Now, this is not exactly an error. Typically, you would have a private and public folder. Your H files would be in a publicly accessible location, and your implementation files, most of the time, those are going to be private. So it's not too uncommon to have your CPP file reference inside the folder hierarchy to get to things. It's just inconvenient for me because I'm not marking things as public or private. They're just kind of all public. That's good there. Yes and yes. Character, anything else in there? No. Okay, so I should be able to save that. I'm going to boot it, make sure it's going to work, and then I'll go do some dinner. Really, I should have built solution instead of running solution, but it's going to build and then run. Sometimes when you hit run solution, the build isn't a good build. It'll it'll try to make updates to things that have changed, and anything that hasn't changed, it'll skip. Whereas if you do a build, it'll be a little bit more in depth, but a rebuild is a full, it goes through and it flushes the cache and rebuilds everything. So you can see that's loading a lot quicker. Yay. Not bad. And then I should have all these. My environment stuff. Yes. And then that. Okay. So that's all working. I'm going to go ahead and stop here and go grab something to eat. Thank you guys for joining me. Catch you later.